Welcome to the Pretty Intense podcast. If you'd take a second and hit the subscribe button, appreciate that. The thumbs up also helps. Today is a kind of a cool one. It was a last second ask because of what we just came from, which was Burning Man. My friend Jason Shurka was there as well. And he's like, we should do an episode about Burning Man and tell people about what really happened and what was really going on. Jason is an awesome guy. He is a spiritual teacher. He's an author. He's written 4 books. He's writing his 5th. And he's a big YouTuber. So he has tons of videos on YouTube. He's really just trying to expose the truth. So there's a lot of disclosure information and people that have come forward to share their information. If you're curious about what's really going on in deep state and in the world, and with spirituality and consciousness. Today's episode was all about Burning Man. And for those who don't know, there was a bunch of rain that came and it sort of trapped everyone and it was a muddy mess and FEMA got involved and the president was alerted about it. And became a really big deal. We wanted to take this time to clarify the truth and also just talk about the event itself, because I think there's a lot of perception about it. And we want to clear up what our reality was about Burning Man, why we go, what's great, what's available. So we got into all that. And I think this will be a very educational video about not only Burning Man itself, but how sort of you show up in it and what it says about you, whether you go or whether you observe and whether you judge it. Please enjoy the episode. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you've been there. Maybe I saw you. All great athletes have one thing in common. They take care of their bodies. It's something that we do from a young age, whether we work out, the food that we eat, how we prepare our mind. This is all part of becoming a great athlete. And one thing that I do every single morning is I drink AG1. I do it before I have coffee. I do it before I eat any food. I really feel like for me, it's helped my gut health. It's made my stomach just feel like less bloated and more calm throughout the day. It handles all food so much better. I'm putting 75 high quality ingredients into my body first thing in the day, which makes a huge difference. Even if I'm traveling, I use the travel packs. I was in Europe for 6 weeks. Every single day I put AG1 into my body. So if a comprehensive solution is what you need from your supplement routine, then AG1 is giving you a free 1-year supply of vitamin D and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase. Go to drinkag1.com/prettyintense. That's drinkag1.com/prettyintense. Check it out. I think talking about what it was really like and our favorite parts are good because I think people are really curious about that. I didn't know what to expect. When I went there for the first time, I rode out onto the playa at night in the dark. I had only been at the trailer. And so it was such a unique experience. So what do you love? What do you love about Burning Man? Because you've been twice, right?
Yeah, so I'll give you my background with it. The first time I went was in 2019, and it was a normal year, nothing out of the ordinary. I personally can't stay there for a week. It's too much for me. So I went for a few days. I experienced it. I explored it. It was awesome. The first time I went, I didn't go with a camp. I just drove in. I parked an RV, and that's it. And that's what
you had a ticket though, right?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. You had a ticket, but you just drove in. You had a parking pass.
There were people parachuting in. It was crazy. It was really, really crazy. And after that, I'm like, you know what? This was enough. This was good for me. I don't know if I'll ever go back. Then what happened was about 6 months ago, I had this idea. And I'm like, you know what? I'm working with this technology. It's like this modality called the energy enhancement system. I called the CEO of the company. I'm like, what do you think of bringing this technology to this event? And he's like, I think it's great. But I said, listen, we got to create it as a form of an art piece. It can't be, any form of commodity of any sort. So let's create a really unique art piece. And did you see it in the pyramid? Did you see those really big towers all around the screen?
Yeah.
They were in each corner, 14-foot towers of this really cool looking technology that we work with all around the world. And basically that was the reason why I went this time. It was to bring that as an installation to Burning Man and basically to bring light to a younger generation of individuals and to make more people aware of this. So we went for that reason. And then everything it got crazy and really interesting and beautiful at the same time, seeing how people really came together in times of need.
Yeah. What's your favorite part? What would you say is something that would bring you back?
Probably I would say the community aspect of it. The fact that people are just together, the fact that there's no exchange of money there. Yeah, I mean, you know that, there is nothing. Everybody's just like, you want this, you want that. So it's like a beautiful thing. And it's two things, because when you have that much beauty, you always have a spectrum, right? You have this both sides of things. So free will is a great thing, because you can choose to be the most beautiful being you would like to be in like a godly light. And you can choose to be the exact opposite if you choose to do that. And it's really up to what you want to do and who you want to be when you're there.
Yeah.
And of course, everybody that I spent time with chose the beautiful path and chose community. And that's really what I saw collectively all around. But what was your experience like?
Everything's available. Choose your adventure. Like everything is available. So, are there orgies? Yep. I don't know. I never saw them. I never walked into one. Like, are there also beautiful talks being had about consciousness and quantum physics and things like that? Yep, there's totally talks about that are totally different. It's very much like everything's available. And my favorite part is the contrast.
Yeah.
You could be on the Esplanade. For people that don't know, basically Burning Man is shaped, think of a clock, and from 2 till 10, that's all campgrounds. And so the first inside row of that is called Esplanade. And then there's for each letter, it goes A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Maybe it goes to J.
It goes to K.
K. And so it goes to K, and those are all the roads out. And then from that empty space of the 2 to 10 range, that is open, and that's just a fence that lines the perimeter on the outside, which is called deep playa. Once you get past the temple, because the temple kind of finishes the circle of the camps, past that is called deep playa. And so once you get out to deep playa, it's so beautiful and quiet. You could be on Esplanade, right on the front row next to the playa, which is the open area with all the big art installations. And you could be raging. I mean, you can find a party at any time. You find anything you want. Again, the spectrum is there. Choose your adventure. My favorite thing was, the night times, the art cars, the lights are so beautiful. Like you can't explain the lights to people. It's just a sea of color everywhere. And so that's really more intense and energy. And then, I loved the afternoons just riding out on the bike to deep playa, and it was so quiet, and you knew there was a party going on, but you also were able to be peaceful and introspective. And then you'd walk into the temple, and the temple had people crying. And, for those who don't know, the temple is one of the pieces that they burn. It's the last night. And people go and put their tributes to people that have passed away in there. And also put intentions that they want to free up when it burns down. All of it burns, including the pictures and the tributes and everything. I just love that contrast. It's whatever you're up for is available.
The first time I saw the temple, it was in 2019. And I walked in there and I didn't know what to expect. And I see a lot of people, crying about their loved ones and really like letting go of grief. And at first I didn't know what to think about it because of the contrast. You never know, because you see one side and it's like, whoa, like what's going on there? And then you see another side and it's very exciting. And it was confusing to me in the beginning. What's really going on here? And then I understood, well, it's all based on your perception. How do you choose to accept this experience? Yeah. And the way that I chose to look at the temple, and it turned into the most beautiful thing in the world, is it was based on my perception of fire being a transformative energy, not a destructive energy. Right? Forget about destruction. That's a judgment of transformation. It's how do we deal with our loved ones that passed? How do we connect with them in a different way? It's a processing and then an alchemy, which is the name of our camp also, the Play Alchemist Camp. How do we alchemize something from dirt to gold, from sad to joy? And it's based on a different perception. So when they do that burning of the temple, I see it as more of a transformation ritual. It's transforming, alchemizing, processing everything that you're going through. In that case, specifically with loved ones that, passed on or moved on or transformed into a different realm or whatever it may be. So it was interesting, but it got a whole lot more interesting when it started raining.
It's very late nights for sure, because so much of the action is at night and the art cars and everything. So definitely you're out of sync with sleep schedule. I'm kind of a 9 to 5er at home when I go to bed at 9 p.m. and wake up at 5 a.m. But it's kind of a 5 to 9er when you're there. You like go to bed at 5 a.m. and wake up at 9 a.m. You know, it would have been a few days of staying up late. And then it was the full moon while we were there, which is just so magical because obviously it was so close to full for a couple of nights before. And so it was so cool to stay up the whole night to see the sunrise, which I got a great picture of the full moon over the mountains, and then the sun came up and I got a panoramic picture where they're both in it, the full sun, the full moon. So it was really beautiful. So it was like after that, it was kind of, because I think that was then maybe Thursday morning.
Yeah, Thursday.
Went to bed at midnight that night, slept for 8 hours, did a recharge night and thought Friday, Saturday, and then leave Sunday. Friday, Saturday, we'll go hard. We'll stay up late. Friday, every time it was time to like go, okay, let's just go explore. Got on the bike, sprinkles. All right, go back in. Get on the bike, sprinkles. Go back in. And then finally it was like, all right, the rain is here, and it started pouring. And I didn't walk out of the bus until Saturday midday. Like I never left the camper that I had there. One of the chefs that was cooking at the camp, he kind of needed some shelter, so he would come in, and the steps in the bus were just like totally filled with mud. Oh my God, it was so bad. And the chair he sat on right next to the door was full of it. So I was getting a sense of how bad it was and looking out the window and just seeing how hard it was to walk around. So, you know, Saturday put on like flip-flops and then duct taped bags around my feet.
Oh, you did that. Yeah.
And
yeah.
so no, the flip-flops want to stick. The bags don't work. Like they tear, they pull. So then after that, you realized socks. What socks am I going to sacrifice? And that worked perfect. But yeah, how was it for you? Did you go out on Friday night at all? And
Friday night I didn't. And it was then when I understood, I'm like, okay, because then everything started getting real. You know, it's like, okay, well, we're in the middle of nowhere. There really isn't service unless you have a place with Wi-Fi, which thankfully I think you had and we had.
Yeah,
You know, that's how there was any form of communication with the outside.
Otherwise there's nothing.
And then I started hearing really weird things going all around the internet. And I'm like, guys, I'm here. Like, that's not true. What? Like the outbreaks and like you're dying.
People were like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I remember being like, it's raining.
Yeah.
Like we're fine. Like, why is everybody so concerned? I kept thinking, am I missing something? So they were totally dramatizing it.
100%. Now, when it got real, like when I understood that something needed to be done was, I think it was Saturday afternoon. And I'm like, okay, listen, they're telling us we might be here till Wednesday. Now, some of us have RVs. A lot of people don't. And if you're in a tent and your tent is destroyed
and it's
and
flooded.
You don't have electricity and flooded, and you don't have electricity, water, clothes, or food, and everybody's going to have to start sharing, which was done, and people were starting to share, and you know, with the whole thing, which is great. But the question is, if the airspace is locked, which it was, and the airport is closed and exits are closed, how long can we really last like that? And that's when I started going into the mode of, we got to do something here. There's a problem.
And you never know. Like, I mean, it's one thing to be in this sort of space where there's no money in exchanging. And I'm sure that there are people that aren't contributing. Like, it's just the reality of life. But there's enough that it does work there every year. Then the thought of like, if people start to get hungry, they will get desperate. And if they don't sleep, they'll be out of their minds.
Yeah. And that's where I started going. I'm like, listen, something needs to be done here.
Yeah.
I don't know what, but we're going to have to figure it out. And then I was going in all directions. And I said, okay, you know what? Who can I call that has, because they were only letting emergency vehicles in at some point. So I understood if we wanted to get out, there was a way to get out, but I wanted to get out not just with myself. I wanted to see how can we bring more people with us. So I started doing inquiries with people with medical helicopters because they could fit like 16, 20 people.
I thought about helicopters too. And, you know, I've seen some stuff afterwards about like, oh, the rich people probably just get the helicopter. And I was like, I did consider a helicopter.
Yeah. No, but if you do a medical helicopter, you can bring a lot of people with you. You know, you can actually make it something where like, let's fit as many people in this as we can.
Of course.
Maybe we could do a few trips. The problem was, it was super illegal to do that. And they wanted to give us like a $20,000 fine or a $10,000 fine.
That's not worth it.
No. So I'm like, okay, I don't know what we're going to do here. Let's just figure out how to walk. So that's where the whole, we walked like
You walked out? Did you walk all the way to Gurley? So for people that don't know, the Black Rock City, the camp area, the whole the Burning Man itself is a few miles from the road. It's a few miles on the same dirt that you end up
on
camping
like
at.
acidic sand that ruins.
Oh yeah. But you have to walk to the road is quite a few miles. And then from there, it's another few miles to a little town that has like a gas station, a little restaurant, and things like that called Gurley. So did you walk to the road or to Gurley?
No. So I walked to the nearest road on Interstate 34. I had a car there waiting, thankfully.
Yeah.
It was me and 4 other people. We started biking because we had bikes. Then the bikes died. And then people started getting hurt. So we had somebody on our team earlier. I think he broke his ankle. We had another girl
From just like tripping and falling over like the
just
lumps
on mud in general. But then one of the women with us, she fell and I think she dislocated her knee. And I'm like, okay, this is getting bad. This is not good.
God. And this is the little group of 4 of you that were walking?
Well, one of them was part of our team. He stayed back with the RVs.
Okay.
And the girl came with us and she hurt her knee pretty badly. I hope she's okay now. I'm in touch with her, but it was like hard mud, you know, it was like serious gluey,
weird, like quicksandy kind of sticky quicksand mud. It was very weird.
Yeah. And then out of nowhere, I saw on my way out, I see like 50 police cars going like 100 miles an hour, literally.
What day was this?
On Sunday.
Sunday afternoon, right? Was this Sunday around like 2 or so, 3?
Yeah.
Yeah, because we were stuck.
Oh, you thought? I think I have a thing, right? It was intense.
It was like we were stuck too, and all of a sudden there's just like we see at least like 20 or so police officers, lights on, blazing by us, and we were like, "What the hell's going on?"
They were just flying from the highway over.
Yeah.
Everybody, boom, boom. They were coming. And then I thought, I'm like, okay, are people is there a problem now with people and like, you know, getting aggravated, frustrated? I just didn't know what to think anymore. And then I think everybody started catching on and they're like, okay, you know, we got to figure this out and get out of here because it can lead to a problem. You know, you never know what's going to happen. So I think at this point, I mean, things are settled down. You know, people are good. The news does what the news does, you know, and
well, man, I mean, when we were stuck, like our exit was like, so, you know, it was Sunday morning and there was somebody parked sort of where like at the side of the camper. So they couldn't really get out. So we had to pull forward and there was a plan to leave really early on Sunday morning when everything was fine. And then with the rain and everything and them closing the gates, assuming they closed the gates and no one could get out, we were just waiting for that to open and pound on the door. It was like 10:30 in the morning and it was a late night. So get up and like, they're like, we want to leave. We're going to make a run for it. Some friends have left. They got out this morning. They're not stopping anyone. We're going to go. And I'm like, let's go. Let's go. And I had to talk my friend into it. Like, he was like, I don't know. And I just have a very optimistic nature to me. And a lot of determination when I set my mind to something. And what I didn't want to happen was that waiting until it actually opened, I was afraid that was going to take a half a day. Because last year when I left, it was during the temple burn on Sunday night. So it was literally still burning. Thought maybe everyone will either choose to go before or stay after. And it took 10 hours to get to the road.
Wow.
10 hours. So I was like, if we wait until it's open, it might take even longer than that to get to the road. And so then you wait for the opening and then you have to wait another. I was like, let's go. Let's make a run. Yeah. And so, but it was, you know, just to tell a story along the way of how helpful people are. Once we got to the spot that there was, we got really stuck. And look, there was a little bit of adventuring off some bumps because, man, you had to keep that bus lit. Like if you like slowed down, it was so heavy, it'd get stuck. So there was some sliding going on.
Were you the one driving? Were you doing your magic?
No, I wasn't driving. The other guy used to race too, so he knew what he was doing. So I let him drive. And I was encouraging him to go faster. But we got to the spot that we were stuck. And, people helped us at our camp. They got boards, cardboard, all kinds of stuff. And some people were kind of pissed because they're like, look, there are bigger problems right now than you trying to get out when it's not even open yet. And we're like, I get it. So we got away. But the next time we're stuck, and these guys had this big truck, and they're helping these campers and truck and trailers try and get out. And there's 3 guys, they're literally covered in mud head to toe, speckled all over his face, like covered. And they're putting boards. They've got a strap to like anchor and pull you or push, lead you out or pull you back. And so they came over and they're like, we'll totally help you. When we get this guy out, we'll help you. And then at one point, they said, hey, look, if you guys, we ended up rolling ahead and then stopping because we got stuck again. And they said, we've got El Pastor tacos for you. We've got drinks. We've got everything. You come over here, you hang out with us tonight, like you'll be taken care of. And these guys were trying to get out themselves, but they had a truck that could pull. So like they were doing what they could, and they had boards, and it was so nice. And so anyway, managed to get off the last place, which was, it took about 30 minutes of waiting until it's like sunk in the water. Drove away and never let off from that point on. And drove like 30 plus miles an hour on the road getting out, which was actually pretty smooth, thank God. And managed to get out. But that's how helpful people were. They were like, even if they were pissed and they were kind of like, look, we got bigger problems. Like we need propane so that we can cook food for the people that are still here. They were helping get out. And then guys that were trying to get out, they were helping, covered in mud, which it's not like showers were the most easy thing to find.
Even if showers were easy to find there, you can't take that mud off of you. It's tough.
It's quite sticky. You have to rub, you have to rub everything to get it off.
Yeah.
And so, but people were super helpful, and they just were like, it was beautiful. That was, I think, one of the really nice things to see is the rallying of everyone, of going like, okay, I'm going to give you what I can. And some of it was time, some of it was resources, some of it was shelter. But there was like, for the record, I never saw any real anarchy. The only thing I saw was walking out on Saturday out to the temple, because someone was doing like a Turkish breakfast out there and like cooking for people. So we walked out with some friends. There was a girl that was saying, like, I had a loudspeaker. It was right. Was at one of the big round open areas inside of the camps. And she was yelling at people for walking because you're messing up the road and making it harder for everyone to get out. And then on the way back, we were like, yeah, whatever. And so as we were walking, though, we were literally packing it in and making paths, and like it was getting dry to walk on where we were walking. So we came back, and there was the girl, I think she was just like a heckler. She was actually kind of a bitch, but you can tell when someone's joking and not, and she was probably just a bitch. But she was on her loudspeaker yelling at everyone. And there was a guy at this point in time when we came back that also had a loudspeaker. And so there's an expression at Burning Man called "fuck your burn." And so he just kind of kept yelling, "Fuck your burn." And he was mad because she's like on her high horse sitting underneath shelter. And last night she wasn't letting anyone come in or something like that. So that was the only thing I saw. It was like a couple people with loudspeakers go at like,
that's like a normal thing. Yeah, like that.
But that was all I saw. Like nobody was fighting. Nobody was even in a bad mood.
Oh, no, which was surprising, like from what I saw, everybody, they're like, you know what, listen, we're here. Let's make the best of it. And I think that's a good lesson for life, where it's like when stuff goes wrong, turn, lemons into lemonade, make it a good thing. Make it. On my way out, you know how I was dressed? I was wearing, I have to show you. I'm like, you know what? Let's just make this funny. Let's make this a good time. Like, this is what I look like.
Yeah.
I like, let's just have a good time and laugh while we're doing what we're doing, no matter. And it was hard. Like I was like wheezing. It was hard. It was very difficult to get out, but let's have smiles on our faces, even if it's difficult, and help whoever needs help.
When things go wrong, it could be the rain, it could be you're traveling and your flight gets canceled or your car breaks down or whatever the thing is. And you literally start to make memories. That is when you actually have the most vivid memories and experiences and stories. Like here we are literally going, we need to do a podcast right away about this because there's so many stories. There's just it's such a story. If we just went to a regular Burning Man, it wouldn't necessarily, register that we needed to talk about it because it wasn't different. It was kind of just Burning Man every year. But there were so many memories. I loved it. I'm personally, I thought it was so cool to be there this year. The only other year I went was last year. Last year was 100+ degrees, wicked wind. They said last year was one of the toughest burns because of the conditions. And then this year was obviously what it was.
Toughest. You came to two of the toughest.
I know. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a cool thing to be a part of. The media dramatized it more than it really was. I couldn't believe that FEMA was involved and, Biden tried to get some words out about it.
All the rumors and all that. But, it goes to show. And what I've learned over the past 2 years is, we're in this world, maybe me a little bit more than you, of speaking about, out there things sometimes. And what, what I'm talking about. And this taught me very clearly, be as calculated as you can possibly be, because there will always be things out there. There will always be stories out there. And you got to be really sure before you go and speak about something and say, look at what's happening. I see reels on Instagram right now about stories of what's really happening at Burning Man, and none of it is true. I mean, we were there. We know none of what they're saying is true. And there are all these people that created this alternate reality that doesn't exist. Yeah. So there's this fine line right now in this age of information with so much coming out with, conspiracies and these theories and all that, where we need to be really careful because we're under a magnifying glass right now. And we need to validate everything that's happening. We need to be very careful with how we choose to speak about it. And we need to verify before we speak about it. Otherwise, you say, look what's happening. This is happening in this part of the world, and it's not. Well, you just lost all your credibility in anything future, even if it's true, because what you said in the past may have not been verified, So it's a matter of right now. That was another lesson for me. Be super calculated and verify everything that you put out before you put it out, because there's a lot of information that needs to come out, and this world needs to change very quickly. And it is changing, and a lot of people are waking up. But if we want to wake up quicker, it's a game of chess that we're playing right now. We got to do it very calculated.
Yeah. And I mean, I think speaking to the reality of Burning Man, because I laugh, and sometimes I laugh at myself. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm up so late and doing all these things. I'm I have all these companies and employees and life, and it's so different. It is such an alternate reality. The whole thing is not the same. I was listening to some stuff that Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh was saying, and you catch other things, and they just sort of, have this perspective that it's basically just this pagan orgy everywhere, and everyone is doing the same thing. And it's not. I don't even know where they were. I never walked into one. Never had sex at Burning Man. I mean, they just seem to think it's everyone's just doing that all over the place. But that's not true. It's really not true. When I say it's choose your adventure, you can go look at art. You can go, play. One day went and walked a labyrinth, a labyrinth where they
I saw that one.
It's one way in, one way out. It was walked a labyrinth. There was also, kite surfing on surfboards where the wind would catch you. I mean, there's just so many things to do that not everything is hedonistic and extreme. I mean, everything is available there. Sometimes I laugh and I think, I was saying there's cops everywhere. That's also another thing that people don't know. There are police everywhere. You can get in trouble if you get caught doing something or whatever. And I, laugh, obviously there's a lot going on there, and, but these cops are walking around, make sure everything's okay and keeping people as honest as possible. It's not that everyone that goes is having sex in a group in a tent and, staying up all day, every day, just doing drugs. I mean, everything's available, but that is a small fraction of people.
It's not that, it's not everything that's going on there. And it's a shame that, When there's a small group of people that does something that's extreme, suddenly it creates this narrative for anybody that's associated with anything. You know what I mean? Because it really is, it's beautiful. There's the art there. It shows the genius of humankind, of what we're capable of in our lens of creativity, so I'm totally with you on that. And I've been hearing, like, oh, it's like ritualistic and like Satan and this. And I'm like, you know what? Let's talk about that for a second. Why? And they're like, well, there's a pyramid and there's an all-seeing eye and 666 and 13. And I'm like, okay, well, and I actually just posted about this the other day. And I basically said, you know what? I'm going to read it to you. I need to read it to you right now because it needs to be said and needs to be heard. Basically, the post says this. I wrote, let's talk about something important. Every day, more and more people believe that everything is somehow satanic symbolism. It's become so prevalent that I feel compelled to clarify a few things. For centuries, individuals and those in positions of power have controlled the minds of many, and this influence persists today. Have you ever considered whether these very people who propagate the notion that specific numbers and geometric shapes are malevolent, might be doing so to instill fear and deter us from embracing the truly liberating aspects of our divine reality? Due to a lack of awareness, we've allowed a handful of people to hijack our consciousness, and suddenly, everything once sacred is now connected to Satan. I see people inadvertently giving their power away to false authoritative figures, failing to recognize that we contribute to our mental imprisonment through engagement in confusion and division, thus perpetuating our self-imposed limitations. We've reached a point that I have no choice but to say something and stand up for humanity's bright future and promising future. Our unity begins with self-awareness. It's time to wake up and live as free, sovereign human beings. It's time to end all division. Then I wrote, let's get a few things clear. A pyramid is not evil. It represents humankind's connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. 33 is not an evil number. It's a master number with a lot of power when used correctly. 13 is not an unlucky number. It represents the resonance of love. 18, which by the way is 666 when you add it up, is not a satanic number. It represents life. And the all-seeing eye is not an evil symbol. It represents protection and good luck. And then it goes on by saying, unfortunately, some individuals have used the power of these shapes and numbers negatively, such as certain groups and individuals out there. That doesn't mean these numbers and shapes are inherently bad. Intention is everything, and certain individuals and groups have decided with their own free will to use these things to do harm instead of good. So we face a fundamental question. Will we use our free will positively and for the betterment of humanity, or will we allow the will of others to shape our perception of the world? My mission is to unite humanity, and I will continue to do that no matter what type of adversity comes my way. My vision for our world is clear. May we choose to tap into universal awareness once and for all. We have everything we need within us to do this. The choice is ours to make. What do you choose?
Well, the two words that come up that I think would be interesting for us to kind of riff and talk about based on our experiences, Burning Man, but then life itself, is judgment and fear. Because one of the things at Burning Man that's very prevalent is there's really no judgment. I mean, I'm sure it exists, right? Because we're still human beings, but like it is so low that I don't ever really notice it. And there's, again, everything. I mean, there are people walking around completely naked. Like it's there, right? Yep. I've seen that. I saw a naked parade one day last year. It was like day 2 and it was really, really windy and I had goggles on. I was glad there was a naked parade going on. And I'm not judging, it's just different, right? And so you have to have such low to no judgment there because there's so much going on. And so I think that that's something that is so beautiful when you're in that space. And then then the word fear really makes me think about the people that speak about it as if they understand what it's all about. And I think that usually when we fear something, we tend to push it away because we don't know how else to deal with it. It's not something that when we fear something, we kind of, we put it down because we don't understand it. And so that's why I think this is great for us to talk about the understanding of it from someone who goes and participates at Burning Man, loves it for their reasons, which are not, I mean, staying up late. Okay. There's some things that go on that aren't my normal routine, but there's really no judgment there. Is that how you feel when you go there?
100%, 100%. And it's a release in a way too. You're finally able to go into a world where it doesn't matter. It's okay. Be who you are, be who you want to be, smile, love, give, receive, do what you want to do. Do it with respect, do it with compassion, have a good time, come back and do your best to bring that energy with you to the outside world as well. It's like the world isn't that, unfortunately. Hopefully one day we'll be able to get to a world where everybody really is here to help each other, and everybody really is here to come together and support each other. And I believe we'll get there. And it's almost like, for me, it was a little piece of that along the way. Now, there were also other things, as you mentioned, that are the opposite side of the spectrum. With those other choices, it was hard for me to be around those things, so it's not a judgment, it's more of a resonance, a feeling. So I stay away from those things. Yeah. And then I gravitate towards let me stick to what I love, let me stick to
everything's available.
Everything's available. So you get to choose. It's free will.
Yeah. What do you think about the fear? Like, what do you, I think that, that's really a prevalent thing for a lot of people. I think even I even heard from the people that, helped, that ended up getting the camper from, they're like, I don't know, Burning Man seems a little intense. I'm a little scared. It's like, there is a general amount of fear around it. And why do you think that is?
I think fear usually stems from uncertainty and the unknown world. Mm-hmm. It could be not just fear of, for example, let's say somebody fears going. It could be fear of what am I going to find out about myself? I found a lot about myself this past week, a lot. And some of it is great, and some of it is a shadow. And those things we have to look at and be like, ooh, like, how does this make me feel? So that's just the transparent truth. I had moments where I'm like, ooh, this needs to change. And I don't know about that. That's not where I want to go. Again, not judgment, self-awareness to be able to get to the point that you strive to get to, whatever that point may be. So I think it's fear of uncertainty, which I don't think is a problem. It only becomes a problem if that fear stops you, because sometimes I'm scared shitless before I do something. That's the truth. But I need to do it anyways, because I know that there's something on the other side. I know it's going to be uncomfortable. I know there are going to be pieces of that where I'm like, oh my God, what does this mean about me? What do I feel about myself? What am I uncovering? What am I going to learn next? That's what's going to happen. That's what change is. And change implies uncertainty. You have no clue what's about to happen next. That scares people. It scares people because what if they don't like what comes next? What if they don't like a piece of what they see? I think the world right now is comfortable with being uncomfortable because at least they know what uncomfortable feels like.
Well, just it's familiar. Whatever they have that's not comfortable is familiar. So they know they won't die from it, which is just the ego's job of going, okay, look, we're mitigating against the worst possible scenario here. And so you're used to doing this. Yeah, it's not good for you, but we know how to handle that and you're going to make it, where this might be worse. So let's just push that away. Let's do the familiar. It's like we're a computer, because maybe we are, and it wants to run the program that it's been running over and over again. And it's really hard to, biologically upload the new program and cancel and delete the other one. That's a process. And so most people just stay in the program.
That's definitely the way that I've been seeing the world more and more moving forward. I'm writing a book right now called Accessing Awareness. And it's all about the program of the mind, how it works, what the reflection of that is. How do you tap into the program to become the equivalent of a programmer? Because that's what we are. Only instead of, Cobra, C++, HTML, and JavaScript, we're using emotions, beliefs, words, music, color, food. It's all a game. It's all a code, and it's sick. It's so cool.
So I'm curious. I was having a conversation with somebody not long ago about the concept of free will and if we actually even have it. Because when you think about why we do what we do in a day, it comes from our programming. And our programming comes from usually our environment, our parents, very, very much so. Especially our emotional reactions are coming from those sort of roots from parenting. It comes from the parents' parents, so it comes from ancestral lineage. So I'm curious your thoughts about free will.
So there's a chapter called The Different Dimensions of Will in this book.
Cool.
Okay. And I'm going to give you a different perspective. I don't know where it came from. It's probably a combination of many things that, I just marinated with, and it came from somewhere, but it changed my life when I saw this new perspective. So let's start with this: ego and soul, spirit, whatever you want to call it, right? We're taught that the ego is like this bad thing. You got to stay away from it. You got to kill the ego. No, you wouldn't have it if it was bad. We just need to learn how to use it the right way. Free will, divine will. Free will is the will of the body. Divine will is the will of the soul. Free will is your body self. Divine will is your higher self. I'm giving you all this different terminology for anybody listening to understand it in whatever way they connect to the most. When we come into this body, let's first start with this. The goal is to align free will with divine will. If we can align free will with divine will, you become unstoppable. The question is, how do we do that?
Exactly.
So imagine this. You're in a car. You know those cars with 2 steering wheels when you're learning how to drive?
Oh, yeah. He didn't need it. He wanted the brake a lot, but he didn't need the other wheel.
So imagine sitting in one of those cars. Okay. You're sitting in one of those cars, only you're the teacher and the student. You're the driving teacher and the person learning how to drive. You're on this road. Only when you come into the body, you now have this like plastic thing that's blocking your view from each other. So your free will in your driver's seat can't see the divine will version of you standing next to you or sitting in the car next to you, but both are steering the wheel. The path in front of you is your destiny. It's your purpose. That's something that you can say is like a predetermined potential. But if there was a predetermined potential that took away your free will, then what's the point of being a human being? So we get this piece where we're allowed to veer however we want on the road. However, on each side of the road, there's trees, there's metal spikes, there's danger. And when we veer, you don't want to hit because you're going to get hurt. The purpose of divine will is to jerk you right back onto the road. So with your free will, you can choose to go off path. But if you choose to go off path, and the further you go off path, the closer you get to danger, the harder the jerk will be back onto the road by divine will. And the harder the jerk, the harder your head hits the window. And that can be in real life, cancer, diabetes, disease, hardship, obstacles. There's nothing in this world that comes here to hurt you. There's nothing in this world that happens to you. It's all happening for you. So how can a hardship or an obstacle in your life be a positive thing? And I would argue that it's divine will doing its best without saying what to do, telling free will, get back on the road. And if we don't listen, those messages get louder because we're veering further and further and further.
Yeah.
So that's how it usually happens in life. We get hurt a little bit. If we don't hear the message, it gets louder and louder and louder and louder until we either listen or we transition. We come back and we try again. Yeah. I think the goal is to align free will and divine will, the desire of the ego with the desire of the soul. Yeah. And if your desire of the ego is dictated by your destiny, potential, and journey in your life of why you came here, you now have an engine working in the physical realm and the spiritual realm. You become a rocket ship that can't be stopped. It's all about congruence and alignment. So I think we have free will, but we have divine will as our backup that shows us the way along the way.
I love that. So then what's the benefit of doing things like going to Burning Man and sort of, like I like to say, like touching the edges? You know, you kind of like start to touch the edges of living, expression, reality. You know, like you kind of push it, right? And it's not my normal life, but what is the benefit of that?
The same benefit of when I went to Dubai. You get to see the beauty of creation. Now, I wasn't excited to go to Dubai because I'm like, this is all artificial. I want to go to nature. Show me a big tree. I was just in
Sequoia. Or like an ancient city, right? Or something.
100%. I wanted to see something real, sure. But then I understood when I got there, I'm like, let me make the best of it. So I looked around me and I'm like, this may not be natural, but this is genius. This is a creation of somebody or a few people that came together to create such designs that show you the beauty of the creative lens that we have as human beings. And in that way, it's beautiful. It may not be a tree or a mountain, but it's still made up of elements that they just happen to manipulate from nature into what we call a building. So it wouldn't be my first choice, but there's a beauty to it. It shows you a different side of humanity. It shows you a different lens of who we are, of the capabilities that we have. Technically, the pyramids aren't natural either. They took stone and put it into place. How they did it is a whole different story. But that is the genius of humankind and what we're able to do. And that's how I saw Burning Man. I think it just shows you other potentials, when you're looking at different shapes. Robert Grant taught me this. When you're looking at different geometry, and you're drawing these different shapes, it's like a QR code to different consciousness. And as you draw them and look at them, you're tapping into that QR code. You're tapping into that new awareness of the energy of that shape. That's a whole world to begin with. It's pretty awesome. What do you think it is with Burning Man?
I think it's to learn more about yourself. Even just through fashion, right? Especially girls, but, guys too, but just what do you actually want to wear? Somebody was asking before we went, it was well, what should I wear? I'm like, it's not Burning Man style that you should be trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. You should be trying to say, what do I like to wear? And how far do I want to take that? That's the style.
That's cool. I like that.
It's like your own personal adventure with creativity. Yeah. I found myself theming it up every day. I was like, oh, today's red. And then another day's a girl look. And then other days they just had kind of almost themes. And I was like, oh, how playful could I get with this? And definitely all about free the nipple. I think I'm doing that in my regular life anyway, but didn't feel near bad at all there. I find them to be stupid. I hate bras. And look, I get some girls have big boobs, big nipples, whatever the situation is. Wear a bra if you want to wear a bra. I don't. Please don't be mad at me. So I think for me, it feels like a way you can kind of start to see your own edges.
Yeah.
Right. And then the question in every situation is what's my part in this? And why am I reacting the way I'm reacting? And so it's almost like the more reaction you have, the more you have to learn. Why do I care if someone's naked?
Yeah.
Or why do I care if they're doing an orgy? Or why do I care if they're climbing on that thing that looks like they might fall off? Or, why do I care about staying up late for a few days? Look, so you're, for me, I'm able to look at my rigidity, my routine, my, how much I like to take care of myself and how I don't like to go outside of those sort of bounds very often.
100%.
How can I relax? One of the things was me, I was riding my bike so fast everywhere. And it was slow the fuck down. And I'm like, all right, you set the pace from here on out. And I was like, wow, that was really nice. And for myself, I'm just going from point A to point B. I do everything so fast. So it was a way for me to go, what is my part in this? Or what does this say about me? What do I have to learn? Oh my God, enjoy the journey. Look at the art along the way. Stop trying to get from deep playa 11 all the way back to camp at 4. Just chill. For me, I think that's what it's about. Is all of it the healthiest? No. Look, there's staying up late, there's drinking, there's drugs, there's everything that you could want to do there. When you get into these uncomfortable places or these unfamiliar places, you're like, what is this saying about me? Why am I afraid to dance? Why what makes me not feel like I should be dancing right now? Or I want to, am I embarrassed or, and you see people in freedom there and it's really cool. And so I find that I get out, I push my edges out a little there.
Well, yeah, I'm curious to see how everything unfolds moving forward. We'll see what happens in future years. And I think we just have a whole world also to explore and taking that energy with you everywhere that you go in a positive way and seeing how we can radiate that positivity everywhere that we go.
You do so many very cool, crazy interviews where people are sharing such extreme information. Where do you see things going? Obviously we have events like Burning Man, and then you have, news being spread in extreme ways, but you also talk to them about so many other things. So from a macro perspective of all the conversations you've been having and the sort of exposing more truths about what's going on from people on the inside. Like, where are we going?
Well, macro, always to a good place. Micro, the question is what's going to happen along the way. Like
Right.
how much damage needs to occur until humanity as a whole, not just a few of us, but the collective decides to say enough is enough and we want to make a change. A lot of people, when they hear, about the work that I do, the organization that I work with, TLS, some people, everybody has their own opinion on it, but my biggest concern always was I never wanted people to outsource their power, to be like, ooh, there are heroes working behind the scenes, because that's not how this works. That's out of a movie. The hero is you. Their job is to activate us. Their job is to help us see who we are. So do they do things behind the scenes? Do they do things undercover? Yeah, and they do a great job at it to the best of their ability. But they're not the ones here to save anybody. Nobody can save anybody other than ourselves. And that's the message that people need to understand and hear over here. So it's a great, interesting, series of interviews that you're talking about, with a lot of information that are going to continue. But the key to getting out of this, and the fastest way to get out of this, is by diving as deep into it as we possibly can. You have to dive into the darkest places in the world if you want to light this world up. Because if you don't light up those dark places, what are we going to do? If we focus on only, the sunshine, rainbows, everything's great. Well, newsflash, it's not. There are problems around the world. So we need to look at those things, and we need to alchemize them, not to look at them and, worry and be in fear and concerned and, oh my God, this is horrible. But to acknowledge the problem so we know that there is one, so then we know how to fix it and we take those steps. And in short, we're going to a good place. A destiny of what I would call light, peace, and love, for real. Light, peace, and love for all. I think it's inevitable. The question really is just, how long is it going to take? What's going to happen along the way? And I just do my part as a little piece of the puzzle to do my best to, raise awareness. And so do you. You do a great job with the people you interview.
You talking about the collective, that's the word that struck me as so important. It's the participation. And so, like, going back to our sort of point of our conversation being Burning Man, everyone has chosen to participate with these sort of 10 rules I don't know about you, but it's crazy how little garbage there is there, because there's a no left. You can't leave leave no trace. Like, you have your own cup. So if people are serving drinks, you have to have your own cup. They don't give you a cup. So, like, there's really no garbage. Like, you're not producing any, and people are super responsible. But people participate there in this, with these rules. And it's interesting because the rules kind of actually create the freedom. So I'm not opposed to having some rules, right? People participate in a way that keeps it going. And so it's the collective that has the power. Like, if half the people there decided that they weren't going to participate in that same way, well, now, obviously maybe federal wouldn't let us do it, have
a problem. Yeah, 100%.
Right, things go away. So, if you don't like the news, stop watching it. If you don't want what the newspaper has to say, stop buying it. If you don't want your stuff made in another country, stop buying that too. Buy from if the collective participates on a large scale in the way that is the right way to move forward with things, then that is exactly what will happen. Like, no one person, might be wrong to say this, but no one person is going to change the world. It really, someone can have an idea, but it can only be something that inspires the masses to do it too.
It needs to be an activation for all. So one person may be able to activate something.
Right.
There are some people that are in this, mentality of, oh, they're here to save us. They can't. Even if they wanted to, they can't. Nobody can do anything for you. It's like your body. Like, I can't heal your body. A doctor doesn't heal you. A healer doesn't heal you. They're just facilitators for your body to do what it does best, which is heal itself. And if your body chooses not to do that, there's going to be an issue. So we need to shift the way that we see things. It's not the person giving you something. It's the person helping activate something within you that you already have.
Sure. And how much you believe it's going to work, and how much you believe in yourself. It was such a fun event. It was so cool. I hope you go back. I hope we see each other there.
I'm going to need some time. I'm going to need some time.
Yeah. The first time I went, I thought, The first couple of days were trying, and it was so hot, and I didn't know I need gas for a generator, and it was a lot of work. Like, it was a lot of work, and I was like, screw this, man. I don't need to come back every year. And then by the end of it, kind of got in the flow. And as soon as I left, I was like, that was so cool. I'll be back. So yeah, it's an adventure, but it's a learning adventure, and just such an alternate reality that just stretches your mind and your emotions and your perspective on just like what's possible and what's available.
I enjoyed this conversation very much.
Yeah, me too. Thanks, Jason. Thanks everybody for listening to the Pretty Intense podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like what you heard today and you want to hear more, please click on the subscribe button.